Hello and welcome to the 241st episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser at Hawk Blogger on Twitter. Yes, I am still one of the people that is still on Twitter, and you can find me there. You can also find us at hawkblogger.com. We've got tons of great content every week. Well, maybe not tons, but we've got great content. And of course, you can find us at patreon.com/hawkblogger, where you can sign up right now, get instant access to the Slack channel, and talk with everybody, because frankly, that is where the conversation has moved as far as I'm concerned. Like, everybody is on Real Hawk Talk Slack, hundreds of folks. Nathan has pretty much given up on Twitter. He has moved to Real Hawk Talk Slack. We've got Evan over there occasionally. We'll eventually get Jeff there. Dayna's there every day. I certainly have found myself there more often. Great conversations about the Seahawks, a little bit about the Mariners. We've got a Mariners channel, other stuff. So head on over. Now's the time to do it. And we will be taking questions this week. We had actually a bunch of great questions from the Patreon chat. So we will get into that shortly. But before we do, folks, there have been a lot of questions about this next co-host I'm going to introduce. And there were questions before he kind of disappeared, and then there were just questions after he disappeared. Like, there were questions about his sanity beforehand and all sorts of other things. People thought he died. People thought, they wanted to know what happened to Evan Hill. At Evan Hill HB on Twitter. Not much of a point to knowing that anymore since he's not on Twitter. But Evan, dude, stop sending me pics of your legs. I don't need to see that anymore.
Wait, what are you talking about? Do I send you photos of that stuff?
Dude, you said Jeff and I have like visual evidence. Don't make me
pull
it out.
I did. You're right. You're right. No, I forgot about that. No, man, I've been good. It's good to see you guys. Just taking a break from the Twitter world, but still following the Seahawks, still following the NFL. Just spending a lot of time with family, loved ones, all that sort of stuff. Eating healthy, exercising, all that stuff. So I'm alive. I'm not a monk. Hopefully my camera figures itself out, but it's good to see you both. I missed your faces, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that is not something that Jeff and I hear very often, but it's very kind of you. And we missed your face as well. Your cherubic cheeks, dude. You've really been you've been pumping the iron. I know it.
I appreciate it, but I also just got out of hot yoga, so my body's still like trying to come down from 105 temperature. So
yeah, I'm gonna love watching your OCD self try to figure out how you've gone out of focus just as we started the show.
It's so annoying.
It's driving you crazy right now.
Was it not perfect, like, for the 15 minutes beforehand?
Well, perfect's a strong description, but it was definitely more clear than it is now. So we'll see. The other co-host we have for tonight normally is in Canada, and he would be freezing his little tail off right now, but he is not in Canada. He's wearing short sleeves, and he is in Florida baking in 80-degree weather. He is Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter, at Real Jeff Simmons. He occasionally is still there, so we party there from time to time. How are you, Jeff? Thanks for joining on your trip south.
I'm all right, man. I'm like Evan. I understand why anyone would want to take a break from Twitter, take a break from the Seahawks season. So it's nice to see everyone again. We got some good questions already.
Dude, but that's $100 donation. That's crazy.
Yeah, wow. Sorry. I mean, I didn't mean this is meant to be put up while you're finishing your stuff, but this is Michael Mathis, unbelievable contribution in Super Chat. $100, technically $99.99. I appreciate it. And his message is Merry Christmas to the Hawk Blogger crew, and he missed Evan. He wants you to give your most controversial food take for old time's sake. Seahawks pretty much have the top 5 pick in the bag. I doubt we make the Super Bowl, but if we win it, Evan has to do the crab rave again. So, Evan, see, you're back, and look, already charity is benefiting. We've got $100 coming in. You missed it. We gave $40,000 to charity this year. It's now $240,000 through all the years at Real Hawk Talk and Hawk
And we gave it to
Bloggers,
did we give it to a new charity this year? Fill me in on
We
that.
did. We gave it to NAMI, National Association for Mental Illness, and really, really important cause, and really happy to spread the wealth. So
That's awesome.
can you, as a benefit to Michael here, give your most controversial food take?
What would you... controversial food take. Oh yeah. This is aggressive, but there's a reason we only eat Thanksgiving. Maybe this isn't that controversial actually, but I'm gonna go with it anyways. There's a reason we only eat Thanksgiving food like once a year. 95% of 75% of Thanksgiving food is highly overrated. Turkey, 99% of the time, not seasoned very well. Nobody's craving turkey throughout the year. Nobody leaves their house and is like, let's go have a turkey meal at our high-end restaurant. Nobody does that. Okay. It's all about the sides, and green bean casserole can die in a fiery pit of hell. That shit is garbage.
I'm with you on the green bean casserole.
Fuck green bean casserole. Why do people still make that?
Dude, Thanksgiving is the best meal of the year. You are absolutely insane. And nobody seasons turkey because turkey is a vessel for all the other starches that you and stuffing that you add into it. The best bite is combining the sweet potatoes and the mashed potatoes and the stuffing and the turkey and the cranberry sauce. Like,
but how many times do you do that a year, Brian?
Well, it makes
there's some
special.
Subconscious implications here.
Every year
I feel
good,
you do it more.
Well, your only supporting point here would be, I think Boston Market is the closest to Thanksgiving food as a restaurant, and they overexpanded. They didn't really take off. I would have gone there and eaten there more often when I wanted Thanksgiving food. Yeah. Jeff, this is, I don't know. You don't really deal with the same Thanksgiving that we do, but
no, yeah, I'm jealous of your holiday. Canadian Thanksgiving is fucking garbage.
Michael Mathis does
Thanksgiving off every year at work.
I would actually be interested in hearing more about Canadian Thanksgiving, but I think we'll save that to next year. You'll have to tell us when that is, and we will bring that up.
It's basically the equivalent of the CFL, like the Canadian Football League. Like, no one wants to hear about this.
Michael Mathis does agree with your take. We will tolerate that because he gave such a wonderful donation. All right, so guys, I have so much to talk to you about. We've got a lot of patron questions, and I think we're going to get to those relatively quickly. But can we start by just talking about how shitty the Broncos played against the Rams?
Oh, crazy.
That gave me so much life. I was so in the dumps. I was like, we're going to lose. We're not even going to get a top 5 pick if the Broncos beat the Rams. The Rams they're going to move. Like, our pick would have been the 7th pick. It just, like, I was like, we are going to lose that. Our team's fallen off. The 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl. It is like catastrophe, like the worst possible combination of things. And then that game. Holy shit. Jeff, I'm going to start with you because I know you watched it. What in God's name happened?
Man, I went to that game thinking I would have bet my house on the Broncos. I didn't think there was a chance the Rams would win that game. And the Broncos just fell on their face in every possible way. Like, Russ started the game with two picks in the first 3 drives, and one of them was right to Bobby, where Bobby just read him exactly. And, man, it was awesome. Like, I was watching the game with my dad, and I was going bananas. And my dad could not understand what the fuck was happening because it's like, why do you care about these 2 4-win teams? It was probably the most excited I've gone during a game, maybe since like the Seahawks playoff game a couple of years ago. Like, I was fired up. Like, I think that's just the Broncos, and it started with Russ, and then the defense falling apart against Baker Mayfield. Like, I didn't fucking see that coming from a mile away. And these shot plays to Tyler Higbee and Cam Akers. like the best track in the league against them. It was bizarre. Like there was no scenario where I saw any of that happening. And the Broncos got punked to the point where their coach got fired.
Yeah. I mean, Evan, that is by far the best Seahawks news in weeks. Like not even close. And like my oldest, Isaac, and I were watching that game, and we watched the Nickelodeon coverage of it, which was
me too, man.
Hilarious. And like Patrick Starr was trolling Russell Wilson. It was so weird. And then the fact that Hackett gets fired, and then the guy that was so obviously clearly the guy to step in as interim coach, their defensive coordinator, says, nah, like I don't think I want to do that. And they have like some like 90-year-old white guy, like who knows, like Jerry Rosberg or something, like I've never heard of this guy, is now the interim coach. What the hell is going on with the Broncos?
Baker is a coach killer. You talk about Russell Wilson being a coach killer. Baker Mayfield is a head coach killer. He's killed 2 head coaches this year. Matt Rule, and then obviously Nathaniel Hackett. I for some reason had a very different gut feeling than you guys did going into that game. I don't know if you remember my text, but I felt confident that Baker, that Broncos defense, they've been so good for most of the year. It's hard to have seen a reality where they were, putting up an A+ effort the entire season. They were going to fold eventually. And you saw that happen. You saw skirmishes on the sideline between several Broncos players. You saw flare-ups. That team is in disarray. They're emotionally and mentally not there. The Rams are not a good football team, obviously, in their current state. They suck shit, but they still kicked ass. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think it's a reflection of like the Rams being good or anything like that. I think it's just a real reflection of how absolutely pitiful that Broncos situation is.
I mean, the Rams have been really bad, and Cam Akers has been really bad, and their offensive line has been really bad, and they didn't get Aaron Donald back, and Baker Mayfield hasn't been that good. Like his claim to fame was one drive, in a game they scored, I think, like 17 points or something. Like it wasn't a lot. And the Broncos were actually getting somewhat healthier. They got Randy Gregory back. They had Baron Browning back. Like, whatever. Like they had Russell Wilson back after a couple weeks. Russell looked, I don't know. Like that was maybe his worst game of the year. Like his first pick was just awful. His second pick was awful. His third pick was awful. And I'm like, legitimately, like you heard Nate Burleson, who was on the Nickelodeon broadcast, saying like they might need to make a quarterback change, not because of health. Like they're like, they might need to bring in Brett. Like this is Nickelodeon saying like, it is so bad that we think Brett Rippon might need to come in because this is not safe for children anymore to watch what's going on the screen. It's crazy.
I have no idea what to say.
Russell Wilson playing the way he played this year is as wild as when the Seahawks defense was the number 1 defense in the NFL for 4 weeks. Those two things are roughly equivalent.
I don't even know what to say. They need to shut Russell down. They really need to. He's completely broken.
Do the Seahawks have a better chance of getting a top 3 pick? Now, everyone, just to keep everyone in the loop, if the Broncos lose at Kansas City to the Chiefs and at home against the Chargers, the Seahawks will have no worse than the 3rd pick in the draft. Period.
And who do the Bears play in their remaining games?
Jeff, do you have that handy?
They play the Lions this week, and I believe the Vikings the final week.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
They're at Detroit and home against the Vikings in the final week. Vikings might sit some guys.
Yeah, this is a big week for the Vikings because I believe if the Vikings win, they're guaranteed the 2 seed.
Yeah, we will get into all the different scenarios, but my first question here is, do the Seahawks have a better chance of getting that top 3 pick if Russell Wilson plays the final 2 games or if Brett Rippon plays the final 2 games? And Jeff, let's start with you.
I gotta go Russ. The only game they've won in the last 7 games was with Brett Rippon. And like Russ is right now is playing at a level that is below an average backup quarterback. And he's turning the ball over. He's not doing anything. And Rippon, like in the 2 games he started, I think they were kind of functional. And I think if Russ plays that Arizona game, they probably lose that game too. And the way Russ played, against the Rams, and the Rams played on national TV the week before. It's not like this game they were awful against the Packers on Monday Night Football. Awful, unwatchable. So I got to go with Rippon. Like, I think Rippon has a better shot of winning right now than they do with Russ, which to me is like the craziest thing maybe that's ever happened in football.
Where are you, Evan? Like, are you like rooting for Russ to play these last 2 games because you think that's better for the Seahawks, or are you rooting for them to like sit him and Brett Rippon to come in?
Yeah, so I'm definitely rooting for Russell to finish the season because he's playing like the worst quarterback in the NFL, and that's a generous statement right now. But I think I communicated this in our group chat today. I'm worried that firing Nathaniel Hackett may cause an interim spark here for the Broncos, and they might steal a game. We saw this with the Colts this year, where their head coach got fired, and all of a sudden, they're winning games they probably shouldn't be. They beat the Chiefs, if you remember. Like, any given Sunday, wild shit can happen. And all I'm saying is, yes, I know the Chiefs are competing for the 1 seed, but crazier stuff has happened. I would not, discount the Broncos in their final 2 games. I'm not celebrating until they lose those 2.
100.
The clock hits 0. But I'm pretty stoked if this ends up being a top 3 pick. Like, number 2 would be nice, but number 3 is pretty equivalent. It's just as good. This is just a dream outcome for the Seahawks 1 season in. So
this is huge. And everyone's like, well, we're not talking about the Seahawks. This is the biggest thing about the Seahawks. If you care about the Seahawks, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 has to do with the draft next year. That is the only thing that really matters the rest of this year, if you're a Seahawks fan, is what happens with their draft picks, because they need a lot of talent. They need this draft to be great. And frankly, the higher they go, the more chances, the more control they'll have over who they pick. And we're going to talk a little bit about draft because I spent a bunch of time going through it. It's super early still. But defensive tackle is a massive position of need for the Seahawks, and it is not a deep defensive tackle pool. There's a few, but it's a massive drop-off. And so, like, people are like, if we don't get Jalen Carter, we'll get Willie Anderson. I think that's a big frickin' deal. I think could be a franchise-altering deal if you get Will Anderson instead of Jalen Carter. Not because Will Anderson's bad, but because I don't know that they're going to have other options that really can make a massive difference on the interior. So, like, it's just tough.
Can I ask a question? A controversial question? The Seahawks play the New York Jets at home at 1:05 p.m. on Sunday.
Yes.
Are you rooting for the Seahawks to win that game in
Always.
Week 18? You are?
Always.
100%?
So here's the thing. Like, I was rooting for them to win against the Chiefs for sure, but I didn't think they were going to win. And when they lost, I was like, okay, like, like this, how they're the 12th pick in the draft. I love seeing that.
Just knowing who we are, though, and what the season has been, and really knowing what our ceiling is in the playoffs, which is not great, even if we somehow slid in there. You really wouldn't prefer a couple losses just to move up a couple notches?
You've seen me at football games. You think you think I'm accessing that part of my brain during a football game? I just want the Seahawks to win always.
Somebody makes a good point in the chat. Jets fans are absolute. I almost just said a really bad word, but they are annoying as hell. So I will give Jordan Brooks in the chat that credit. Jets fans
Yeah.
are obnoxious.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, Jeff, what about you?
I'm gonna be probably rooting for the Jets. I kind of like this Jets team, other than Zach Wilson. They got a couple of guys. They got Dwayne Brown and they got DJ Reed, some of my favorite guys from the last couple of years. And
Wait a second. You guys are really going to be in the game and you're going to be cheering when things go wrong for the Seahawks. Like you're going to be cheering for the Jets. When they get a touchdown, you're going to be clapping.
Cheering for the Jets. But listen, like I don't see any value in this team like sliding into the last spot in the playoffs and then playing San Francisco and getting boat raced. I want that 12th pick to keep getting higher. I think that's way more valuable than any game. I'm not going to be sitting there like cheering for the Seahawks to lose, but
would you rather get our asses bent over in the playoff, wild card playoff weekend, or get like a pick like 3 picks higher in the first round with our own first round pick?
They're already up to 12 now. They can get inside the top 10.
The answer's very clear to me. I'm just letting you know that.
So, I mean, there was a point not that long ago, first year for the Seahawks, where there was the people debating whether it was better for the Seahawks to get in the playoffs or not, with Charlie Whitehurst finishing the final game of the season. And they made it in, and we got Beastquake out of that. And they beat the reigning Super Bowl champs, the Saints, in that game. Would I trade a couple picks higher for Beastquake never happening? No. I wouldn't. So, look, I am always going to cheer for the Seahawks to win. Do I believe the best thing for this franchise is for them to get as high a pick as possible? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a good consolation for sure.
I guess the way I would frame it is I'm cheering for what I feel like is the more successful outcome long term beyond this season.
Yeah,
I mean, literally, like you're like feeling good in your heart when you see the Seahawks screw up in the game. Like, I can't believe that's true. Like, you're like,
normally
yes,
I agree with Brian, but this team has been so like joy, like the way they've sucked the joy out of the last like 6 weeks of the season. Like, I almost have no emotional attachment to this team right now.
I don't know. I'm thinking long term with this team. Like, this season's a wash to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I had gotten so Evan, we were going to talk about this before because we were texting about this. I had entered this season with super low expectations, like just wanted to see players develop, like whatever. And you would ask me, like, you're like, I don't understand how you got so hyped about this team. Mm-hmm. Like, this was something you asked today. Like, I can't remember exactly how you put it, but I guess I spent a lot of the middle of the season with Nathan and Jeff and Dayna. I'm like, is this front seven? Is this really the number one defense in the NFL? Like, is this really like, I was incredulous is how I would describe. I couldn't believe what I was loving it, but I don't know if I ever really believed it. Every single week I was like, there is no way, this doesn't make sense, but I was loving it. And then that the Cardinals game, the second Cardinals game, when they came back in Arizona and got to 6-3, I was like, oh shit. Like, they've got Tampa. They've got an easy schedule coming up. They could get to 10-3. Like, they should get to 10-3 against this before they get to the 49ers game. Mm-hmm. And they did it. They beat the Cardinals. And then that Tampa game eviscerated me. Like, I was done after that game, and it's been downhill since. So I don't know, like that. It sounds like you just never got swept up in it at all.
I guess I've just been so demoralized by the defense over the past 5 years with inconsistent results from them that it's just hard to buy into the talent they have and whatever new scheme they're doing. It's just, guys, this is like the 4th year in a row of us starting with like what is somehow the worst defense in NFL history, and then we turn it around for a few weeks and maybe a sustained stretch, and they just don't. It's not consistent. Like, if you're inconsistent, you're bad, and they're very bad. And I just have no yes, there's a ton of draft capital for us to feel hopeful in the future. Draft capital we've never had before because of this Russell Wilson trade, but I just don't. This team doesn't. It doesn't. I hate using this word, but they don't have these like alpha dogs, like these alpha football players that we loved from like the Legion of Boom, Marshawn Lynch, like early Russell Wilson days. We don't have players like that. I don't even know if I can name one player on our team that has that like alpha dog mentality that like another team comes to play them on a Sunday and is deeply afraid of, crossing that player on the field. Can you name a single player?
I don't think that player exists. I mean,
like we're fucking weak. Like
exactly.
Teams are not scared of us.
Yes.
Teams are not scared of the Pete Carroll football team. We're bad. We suck dick. It's just the reality. Like, let's stop with this fake, like, illusionary, they're turning around for a couple of weeks. Name one fucking player on their defensive line that would be starting on any other fucking team. Name one.
There isn't. There isn't.
Let's take off the homer blinders for a second.
No, I think the difference, though, is what happened in that October was the rookies were driving a lot of it. And it seemed real. And I was sort of with Brian where I was skeptical about me and Brian have been talking about the front seven and the drafts. But Evan, you're definitely right. That stretch in October seemed legitimate because of it was Cross and it was Lucas and it was Walker and Tariq Woolen. And once those guys started to hit the wall, the wheels just came off because the rest of the team is exactly what you said, Evan. They're garbage. Like you can't just escape years of bad drafts with one good draft. And that's what happened. After the truth comes back to you, and you all of a sudden when you waste first round picks on LJ Collier and last year D. Eskridge, and like that's what your team looks like. And one of the most frustrating things about this whole regime is it's clear. Like you look at Carolina or something, like a team like that, where they've had all these injuries and they've had a coach change, and it's clear how Pete wants to play, and they built a team that can't do that at all. Their best two players are wide receivers. Their highest two paid players are safeties. Like they're soft. They don't have guys in the front seven. They're weak in the interior offensive line. It's a real frustrating disconnect that they're still recovering from. And that's why this draft has been my focus for so long, because they can really change it quick with two drafts. But yeah, what Evan said is absolutely true.
There's just not a single part of this team, and I'll finish up real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's not a single part of this team that is so exceptionally dominant that I know on any given Sunday they're going to dominate. And dominance wins Super Bowls, and they don't have it.
I think it's one of the best points you've made in a long time, not just because you haven't been on for a while, but on the show. That's it in a nutshell to me. This is a weak team. It is a weak team that gets pushed around week in and week out. And one of the things that I think we don't talk about enough, like the defense, come on, it is a dead horse at this point. I'm happy to keep hitting it because it's just so freaking awful to watch. But they're not the only part of the story. Yeah. The offensive line was playing really well to start the year. Gino and the offensive line together were playing really well. There weren't a lot of sacks. There was like a lot of efficiency in how they were playing. The pass protection was solid. They played against New Orleans, who you can laugh at, but like Cam Jordan's a legit pass rusher and Marcus Davenport, and they had interior guys, and they played well in that game. And they also were blocking, like they were for Kenneth Walker and initially for Rashad Penny, who, by the way, I think Rashad Penny's injury is underrated in its impact on this team. I think Rashad Penny, like as great as Kenneth Walker was, at Kenneth Walker's peak, before he had this slide, Rashad Penny was still gaining a full yard per carry more than Kenneth Walker. He's just a different type of player when he's on the field, like it or not, for people that are Rashad Penny haters. But the point is the offensive line has fallen off a cliff, especially the inside. I think the tackles have regressed, but I think the interior offensive line is probably one of the worst interior offensive lines in football over the last 6 weeks. Am I wrong?
And that's not good. Because they have legit resources allocated there. Like Gabe Jackson is not, like Damian Lewis. Those are not, poor. Those are not lowly draft and money resources.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, like that's got to be one of the big, like, we could go on. It's the interior offensive line. Safety, Quandre Diggs has been ass. I thought he played better against Kansas City. I think he came in because I think he knew that he showed up the wrong way. I think the team paid Quandre Diggs what they did last year because they knew they were moving on from Bobby Wagner and from Russ and thought Quandre and Jamal would be the leaders of this team. Jamal gets hurt the first week, and Quandre's been anything but a leader this year. Jordan Brooks, another possible leader. He's shit the bed for the most part. Like, Cody Barton's a disaster. I don't care what anyone, like, I have respect for folks that watch all the film. I see Cody Barton every single week missing tackles on big plays. I see him trailing players. I see him getting blocked up repeatedly. Great and even good players don't have that happen every week. We should not be sitting here arguing about Cody Barton, who at his best will be a rotational backup player. The roster's thin, dude.
That's reality. And it's kind of sad we're not at the point where, like, the Seahawks don't give up 30 points to the Chiefs and we're like, oh, the defense played great. It's like, should the bar be a little higher? It's pathetic.
I'm still embarrassed by that Panthers game, by the way.
Oh, that was I mean,
take your pick. Falcons, Panthers,
Raiders. Fucking Josh Jacobs having like 600 yards on us.
I mean, it's weird. Like they played the Chiefs. They played the Chiefs and the 49ers, two powerhouse teams, better than they played those other teams, right?
It's the inconsistency. It's what bothers
the
me so much.
And the thing is, their defense played okay in the last two games. Like Brian said, now their offensive line, especially in the interior, has made the offense like unplayable. And it's the first half of that Chiefs game last week. Like, they couldn't run a play without like instant pressure or like Gino running around for his life. And there was just no chance. Shane Waldron wasn't helping matters either, but like the way they've handled the center position and the guard play is just like Phil Haynes and Gabe Jackson have been especially bad recently. And Damian Lewis had a pretty good month last month, but he started to fizzle a little bit too. I think he graded not too terribly, but you can't just run like the basic level of an offense. We've seen what happens to Gino. Like, I don't think Gino's the kind of quarterback you can just throw in if everything else isn't working. When everything's not working, Gino's a bad quarterback, and that's what's happened to the Seahawks. And now that the offensive line, Gino needs a lot of the other things working to succeed. That's, I think, what we've learned. But, man, if you suck on the offensive line, suck on the defensive line, you're just exactly what you two said before. You're a shit football team.
Evan, you've been in and out about the quarterback situation, and we don't have to go deep on this, but like, this is part of why I am so against them drafting a quarterback first. Like, this team will not get tougher. This team will not cease to be pushed around by getting a quarterback first next year. And I think you're setting up, even if that quarterback's good, I think you're setting up that player to suffer through absolute shit by not prioritizing defensive line, offensive line. Like, that has got to be what you do to make this team credible again.
So let me push back on that.
Yeah.
They have, what is it? 4 picks in the top 40, 50?
Yeah.
So, okay. So if they take a quarterback at 3, let's say it's 3, they stick and pick, and they go, trenches the next 3 picks. How does that make you feel? Genuinely asking.
Not good, dude.
Really?
No.
Because here's the one asterisk, and I can't believe I'm about to defend John Schneider and Pete Carroll, but here I am. Okay. I trust them more evaluating the quarterback position than I do other positions.
Why?
They had the rumored interest in Josh Allen pre-draft. Okay. They were all about Patrick Mahomes pre-draft as well. Uh-huh. They obviously made Russell. Let me take that back. They had success with Russell Wilson. They obviously, have had success with Geno Smith, somebody who we thought was nothing better than a backup. I think if they have a guy at the quarterback position in the draft that they are absolutely head over heels in love with, I'm okay with them. I'm okay with them pulling the trigger on it. I really am.
I think that is catastrophically bad.
It could end that way. Could end that way.
Jeff, I mean, look, here's the thing. If they swing and they hit at quarterback, that's good. I mean, it's really good. They have massive holes to fill elsewhere. It'd be really hard to do. If they swing and they miss at quarterback with the top pick, I feel like this franchise is screwed for the next 5 years minimum. Now, if they swing and miss, like, I think if you look at the defensive tackle, though, I think you gotta, like, the error bars are just narrower on the defensive side of the ball, I feel like. Go ahead.
Well, I see what you're saying. And I guess the counter to what you're saying is if they swing and they take that pick and they miss, aren't they going to just end up with higher picks the next couple of years? Like, aren't they going to end up in situations to draft? Like, because they don't have the base of talent where they're going to be a good team. So I guess that, like, say you blow this pick, that there's a chance they're picking 2 or 3 next year. So I agree with you for the most part, Brian. I think you need to just build the trenches of this team because I think you're kind of mistiming. But it's hard to, like, not to watch Trevor Lawrence. I know they're not going to get a Trevor Lawrence and be like, how the fuck are we going to win without one of those guys? But I'll converse it. Brock Purdy. And you saw Pete talk about it on the radio this week. And you kind of seen it around the league there. You need a complete team. You need, like, the pieces in place, and you need the parts working together. And just to put a quarterback in there, like, Justin Herbert just made the playoffs for the first time in 3 years.
Yes.
You need everything. Yes. Like, you see it, San Francisco is probably Pete's dream roster, even though he built a team with receivers and safeties. But you see, they've been able to put in Jimmy Garoppolo, who's been shit. They were in the NFC Championship. And you see all those contributing parts. I think that's what they need to build. I think that's what they need to try to build, because I don't think Pete's the kind of guy who's going to win on a quarterback-centric team. If they have a different head coach, I'm probably thinking a little differently, but I want to see them build the proper, things come together. That's where they need to do this thing.
There's all this argument about if they end up at 3, who they're going to pick. We all know they're going to trade back, right?
No way.
They are going to trade back. I swear to God, he's going to slide back to like 8 or 9. And he's going to net like a first and a second or something like that. I've talked myself into this happening. I'm actually expecting it.
It's possible, but I think that's more likely if they get like the second or maybe the first pick than the third pick.
John Schneider is literally going to bed every single night and struggling to sleep because he's getting so aroused at the thought of potential trade offers sliding back just a few picks and netting that stuff. No, you can't tell me that's wrong.
No, you're not wrong, but here's the thing, Evan. Let's say, like, Jeff's right and the Seahawks, let's say they end up with the 12th pick.
Sure.
Okay. So 3 and 12. I'm telling you that they could trade back into the mid to late 20s and pick up a bunch. They could trade back multiple times from that second pick, that second first round pick, I should say, and stock up even more, because I think there is a ton of depth in terms of edge players in this draft. I think you can get quality edge players into the second, maybe even to the third round. I think there's going to be quality, like, center for sure. Something you could probably get in the second or third round. I think that just because it doesn't get prioritized as much in the league.
Did they trade back last year? I don't think they traded back, because that was last year was the year of the best draft capital in a decade, and I don't think they really traded back until like the 5th round or something.
They didn't. Yeah, that was a very rare year, but I think it would be surprising a little bit more if they trade back from the first of their. Well,
it's gonna get interesting, because there are people out there who, like, think Seahawks absolutely need to draft the quarterback. There's some of the more analytically focused people. Once the NFL starts digging into, like, Will Levis and Bryce Young, like, they might be in a situation where, say, Levis goes first and Carter goes second, and then, like, if Bryce Young or Will Anderson are sitting there. They're going to be in a really interesting spot. So, like,
I'm not like 100% opposed to it for what it's worth. Like,
yeah.
I guess, Evan, last thing I'll say on this, then we should take some Patreon questions, is my question is, like, Jeff brought up this great point. Do you want the 49ers style build where you're trying to go after a Super Bowl and you basically fit in a quarterback? Do you want a Jaguars style where you basically start with the quarterback, or a Chargers style where you basically start with a quarterback? And I don't know, man. I look at those rosters, like the 2013 Seahawks certainly started with every other position but quarterback, essentially. I think if you want to have a dominant roster, like, I think you got to prioritize other positions first, unless you think that they're a quarterback away from winning.
I'm for whatever scenario gets us to a Super Bowl as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Amen.
This is the reality. If they don't have a quarterback prospect, like I said, I trust them in this area. If they don't have a quarterback prospect that they're not head over heels in love with, yeah, build the rest of the roster. I'm totally okay with that. I'm not going to die if they don't take a quarterback at 3.
I'm very invested in this draft, like massively invested in this draft, as I'm sure all Seahawks fans are. Maybe not as much because other fans are still paying attention to the season. We are 40 minutes into this podcast. We've spent about 3 seconds on the Jets. I don't know if we're even going to talk about the Jets, but here we go. We're going to take some Patreon questions. I'm going to throw these to Evan and Jeff. I'll take a few as well. And you can be the one asking these questions. If you go to patreon.com/hawkblogger, sign up, get immediate access to the Slack channel. I'm telling you, hundreds of folks there. That's where a lot of folks, Nathan, Evan, Dayna, myself, are there. Not as much on Twitter lately. So it's a great place to be. A lot of really good, friendly folks having nice conversations about the Seahawks and other stuff related to Seattle sports. So go over there, patreon.com/hawkblogger. Also, give the show a like, click subscribe. We'd love to keep growing the show that way. All right. Jeff, you're going to get the first question. This one is from Braxton, who provides all sorts of wonderful updates in the Slack channel, I will tell you. His question for you is, has Igwebuike earned a roster spot next season, assuming he continues his great kick returning?
Yeah, definitely. He's the Seahawks best player right now. I was joking with you two guys on the Saturday that I was cheering for the Chiefs to score just so we can watch his kick returns again. So I was drinking, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, like they've been putting so many shitty returners over the years. DJ Dallas and guys who like their return game's been so bad in the last few years. So this guy has been awesome at it. Yeah, I think he's definitely worthy of a roster spot.
Yeah, I've missed having a good returner. It's been fun to watch him. All right, Evan, this one's for you, and it comes from Troy Fagan. Choose a Seahawk, any Seahawk, current Seahawk, and come up with a New Year's resolution for them.
A New Year's resolution for them. This is a really hard question.
Do you want me to take another question while you think about
yeah,
this?
that's like I gotta think about that.
I want to hear a good answer for this. So take a second. I'll answer one. Okay. You think about that. Okay. Marco asks, assuming we don't get a top 3 pick and Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, and Bryce Young are not available, when it's our turn, what do you do with that first round 1 pick? Do you pick someone like Brisset or Murphy? That's Miles Murphy, or trade back. It depends on what's offered. I certainly would be more open to trading back, but I would only trade back a few picks probably. I think if you can get a first round pick the next year, especially from a team that is likely to be in the top 10 again, I'm much more likely to trade back from that pick. I think Murphy's an interesting guy. I think Brisset, although I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but Brisset, whatever it is. There was some question about whether he was going to return to school. I don't know if that's been finalized or if he's declared officially yet, but he's a really interesting interior player. So that's what I think.
I have my New Year's resolution answer.
All right, cool. Hit us.
I'd like Cody Barton to learn how to tackle.
I don't like that one because I don't want Cody Barton to play. Like he can learn how to tackle on special teams, I guess. He's good at that.
I just think it's a core responsibility of his job duties, and I think he should try doing it.
Okay. All right. I think that we'll accept that answer. Jeff. PCC the third asks, does anyone feel that DK has more than lived up to his contract?
I think yes. I think there's still things that leave some to be desired, but of all the things that have gone wrong this year, I think the receivers have been really, really good. And yeah, DK, there's always more, and you always think that he can just emerge to the next level. We haven't seen it down the field as much this year, but I think just as an overall receiver, his route running has gone a lot better. I think he's winning in a way more consistent way. One of the things that we've saw over the last couple of years is just moments where DK would just go cold throughout games, where he'd go quarters without touching the ball, half without touching the ball. Some of that might have to do with the quarterback now in Denver, but I just think he's more of a complete player. And I think the receivers have been if we're going to say one good part of this team this year, I think just Tyler and DK have done a really, really good job with challenging circumstances. And sure, maybe he's not like the ideal $25 million a year player, but I think he has lived up to his contract. I think he's been good this year, and I think he's getting better and more rounded. And if we can get more protection, I think that deep ball game can get going too.
I think the offensive line playing better makes DK better. And as much pressure as Gino's been dealing with, his ability to really find his receivers has been limited.
My favorite play of the season was probably DK capping off that drive against the Rams on Jalen Ramsey.
So good.
We talk about dominance.
So good.
We'd like to see it more consistently, but that was peak dominance against the best cornerback in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, that was awesome. All right, Evan, next question for you comes from Jen Maz, one of our most active and passionate patrons, and we love you, Jen. Her question is, do we cut Diggs post June 1st?
I think you got to think about it, and I would. I really would. I don't think an aging safety who has had serious effort questions come into play this year, serious leadership questions come into play. I know this is not going to be a well-received opinion, by the way, because I know Quandre Diggs is like loved among fans, but this has been a really shitty year for him. Let's not forget that, as an assumed leader of this team in week 3 or 4, he came out and openly said, we flat out suck, or something verbatim to that. So I think when you look at his deal, and I'm just pulling it up right now, a post June 1st cut, it's pretty significant. They would save 14 million. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and he's going to be 30. I mean, he probably still has years as a productive safety left. It's just a question of whether or not you want to allocate those dollars to that position, and I'm not sure you do.
I would go as far as to say I'll be disappointed if the Seahawks have both Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs on their current contracts on the roster after June 1st. The only thing that tempers me from saying I want both of them gone for sure is it's a pretty thin draft in terms of safeties, or at least it appears to be. So I'd love 2 young safeties. I don't want to go spend more free agent money on a safety necessarily. I would love to get some young safeties in there, and at least one would be great. All right, Jeff. This comes from Brondy. Ignoring the cap ramifications for a second, is there anyone on defense other than Tariq Woolen whose status on the team should be secure?
Yeah, Nemhauser. Nemhauser's had a good year, and I think no matter what scheme you play, you'd be in. Shelby Harris, I think, would be the other one. I think Shelby's the guy you want to keep on the team. Outside of those guys, no, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, even with some of the young players that have, like Ryan Neal, like there's some guys that have played well, and you like to keep Kobe Bryant, you like to keep him around, but none of them are like guys that you have to keep for sure. Evan, this is a good one. All right. This comes from Zach Hassan. Hypothetically, if the Broncos were to cut to cut Russ, and Gino was a free agent, and let's say he signed with another team, not the Seahawks, would you be interested in bringing Russ back?
On a veteran minimum deal? Sure.
Jeff? I need to know your answer to that one too. I'm
No,
curious.
no, I want nothing to do with this guy.
You wouldn't at a veteran minimum deal?
No, he sucks. He's the worst player in the NFL right now. I'd rather give a young guy a contract. I
coined the term LVP.
Either,
Camp body?
Least valuable player, opposite of MVP. Least value for most paid money is got to be Russell Wilson this year. He is the LVP.
It's not even close.
There's a possibility.
There's headlines on ESPN today saying Denver saying in a press conference that they think he's fixable. They think he's fixable. The guy they traded 3 first-round picks for, essentially.
Yeah.
There's no one even in this conversation other than for least valuable player.
I do think Deshaun Watson is a notable mention, though. He played really poorly this year.
I mean, the guy's been going. He's been putting people through a lot, and he's been in it with them. So, let's see what he's like next year. But
sure.
All right. Jeff. Sorry, I'm going to save this for Evan. Jeff Brondy again asks. No, I'm going to skip this one. Let's go to Mark Zuck asks. The last few weeks have shown some of Gino's limitations. He needs a solid run game to be effective. Some poor decision making, like not running for first downs. Knowing that, there'll be an upper limit on how much Seahawks will be willing to pay Gino for an extension. What do we do if a QB hungry and foolish team like the Colts, Saints, Panthers pays him crazy money, like over $40 million, and we don't draft a QB with our top 4 to 5 picks? In that worst case scenario, or is that worst case scenario?
Honestly, no. I don't think this team's going to a Super Bowl in the next couple of years. I think if they take the Brian route in the draft, I think there are more quarterbacks like Gino that you can get. Like Jacoby Brissett isn't that different than Gino, for being honest. They played at a very similar level this year. There's guys. Jimmy Garoppolo's a free agent. I know that would all suck, but I don't think there's a huge difference in performance between Gino and Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think it's far more important. I think we saw the height of Gino. We saw the peak of him, which was an MVP level guy when everything else was working. But I think it's just far more important right now to get everything else working again. And I think whether it was a Gino or a Brissett or even a Jimmy G, I think they'd be in a very similar spot, big picture wise. So if someone wants to pay Gino $40 million and they don't franchise him, see you later.
Can we stay on this topic for a second? Because we haven't. I remember we had this kind of similar conversation like 6 weeks ago when they were 6-3. And I remember, I think I said at the time, I was comfortable up to $35 million a year. So my answer has changed, obviously, over the past 6 weeks. What is the max, just getting a status check with both of you, what is the max number, average per year that you would be comfortable paying Gino in an extension right now?
I'm still like 30 million.
Okay, so you would do like 260 or like 390?
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically looking to give him a deal that averages less than the franchise, like the non-exclusive franchise or the transition tag, by making it a multi-year deal and having the guaranteed money be less than the average per year of if he was transition tagged or something like that. So that'd be like high 20s, low 30s would be what I'd be thinking.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm somewhere about 30 to 32, 33. I think the best case scenario is a 1-year deal on the non-exclusive franchise tag. If it's a 3-year deal where you can get out after 2, I'm okay with that. But yeah, I think Gino, we've seen the height of him and we've seen the bottom of him, and I think he is a solid quarterback when things are working. But Kirk Cousins has kind of been like that, and Derek Carr's kind of like that. I don't know if he has a body of work to do what those guys are, but I think it's somewhere in that range. But like Evan said, the prices dropped a lot. Like we were talking like that Tannehill contract. I think I would not be comfortable giving him that. And Tennessee is already at the point where they think they're seeing limitations. So I'm curious
So,
what Evan
like,
gets.
so the 9th ranked quarterback in terms of APY is Dak at $40 million a year. 10th is Kirk Cousins at 35. The question is Geno going to be asked to be paid like a top 10 quarterback?
I'm sure he will.
And
Sure
will
he
he
will.
I don't think it really matters what Geno asks. I think the real question is whether the Seahawks are willing to let him walk with zero compensation and
Yeah.
with like zero control. And
They
I think
better
that
not.
would be a big mistake. I think
they better not. That's
yeah,
worst
I
case
think it would
scenario.
be a really bad mistake. So in that case, they're either going to non-exclusive franchise him or they're going to transition tag. Transition tag's like not that much less. It's like 28 million versus like 32 for the non-exclusive franchise.
Yeah.
One of those two either is fine. And then it's just a matter of whether Geno's, if they can come to agreement on a multi-year deal. And if they don't, I'm not broken up about it. Like another year for him to prove it and they pay him 32 million or whatever, like whatever, that's fine. They can franchise him again next year if they want to.
I think what I would do if I were Seattle is you apply the non-exclusive franchise tag, which just so people understand is he can negotiate with other teams, but if he accepts another deal from another team and we don't choose to match it, then basically we get the other team's 2 first-round picks. Okay. And the non-exclusive franchise tag, like Brian said, is about $32.5 million a year. I would non-exclusive franchise tag him and then work to get a deal in the I'd offer him a little bit more guaranteed, like 3 years, like 96 million with like 45 to 50 guaranteed. So give him that incentive beyond the full guarantee of the non-exclusive tag and see if he bites at it. But if we start approaching 40 million a year, I can't rationalize that, guys. I just can't.
But they wouldn't have to. They wouldn't have to.
Yeah.
All right. I want to take 2 more quick questions. And then we're gonna do our picks and we'll wrap up because time is flying. I could talk to you guys. It's been too long. It's been fun. So Evan, this one's for you. This is from John. John Hurlbutt, one of our sponsors, Altitude Homes. Go check them out. John's also started picking up golf recently, which I'm super encouraging of everybody to do. John wants to know, Evan, when does the Jason Myers extension get done?
Oh my God, I have not had an opportunity to gloat about this, you motherfuckers. He proved all the doubters wrong. All the shit I would take for like a year, all the ats I would get in my mentions every time Jason Myers missed, which was infrequent. That motherfucker didn't miss for like a year and a half. And now again, he's like, one of the best kickers in the NFL. I don't even remember the question. Jason Myers is a stud. They need to extend this dude.
When does it happen?
As soon as possible. I think he's on the last year of his deal. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. So he's making $5 million this year. Give him 4 years, 22, 23 million.
Okay. Last question is for me, and it comes from one of the patrons who is questionable. I will just say, like, I don't usually cast aspersions on patrons, but this guy's name is Evan Hill, and he asks, would I rather the Seahawks pay Jason Myers $15 million per year over 3 years or 4? And I refuse to answer that question. For the first time, I will not answer a patron question. But thank you for all the patrons. Fantastic questions. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them. There were so many, so little time. And please, we'll keep chatting. Patreon.com/hawkblogger. Get instant access to the Slack channel, and we will see you there. All right. We are going to talk briefly about this game this weekend. We're going to go round robin. You guys are going to tell me what's going to happen in this game. And Jeff, we're going to start with you. What happens in this game, and what is the final score?
I think the Seahawks, they saw Chris Jones last week. They saw Loudland. Now they're playing one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. And the guy that gets compared to our buddy Jalen Carter a lot, Quinn Williams, is coming to Seattle this week. And I think he's going to wreck a lot of our offense. If we don't know if Tyler's going to play, and we're playing one of the best cornerback duos in the league with Sauce and old friend DJ Reed. If Zach Wilson was playing, I actually would have picked Seattle because Zach Wilson is one of the worst players in the league right now and basically tanked a pretty good Jets team season. But with Mike White, they're a pretty well-rounded team. They're good at a lot of. They're basically where we want. They're basically what the Seahawks could be next year. We're basically a year behind them. They got the 2 picks last year that became Jamal Adams. They got a 4th overall last year with Sauce, and 10th overall was Garrett Wilson, and their team's taken off. That's kind of what we're hoping the Seahawks can do next year. So they're a year ahead of us. I think with Mike White back, they're just a much more complete team. They're going to beat us 27-16.
All right, Evan.
Yeah, I think Seattle's offensive line is going to continue to struggle against this Jets defensive line. I think they're going to get a lot of pressure on Geno. I think Sauce is going to take away one side of the field as he does, either DK or Lockett if Lockett returns this week. I know Jets just came off a humiliating loss. I think they're maybe not humiliating, but a pretty bad loss to the Jags. And, I think they're on a 4-game losing streak where it was we're on a third, 3-game losing streak. The two teams actually have kind of a similar story to the season. They actually both they both started hot, 6-3. I think Jets were 7-3 at one point down the stretch. But I think the Jets win this game. I think they get a spark with Mike White, and Zach Wilson is obviously a disaster. So I think they win this game. I'm going 28-21.
Yeah, look, I can't sit here and spend an hour talking about how the Seahawks are just pushovers. And the only thing I will say about that in the Seahawks defense is they did show spine the last 2 weeks on defense. They did, given their abilities, they showed up and they put themselves in harm's way and tried to limit opposing offenses. And I respect that. I do respect the effort and the intention and the pride associated with that. I don't respect the talent. And I'm pretty disgusted by this team in general. I'm just very frustrated by watching a team that cannot oppose their will on anybody. And I think Jeff put it well, going against a team that has interior pass rush, that has 2 great cornerbacks that will limit receivers. I don't know that Tyler Lockett's going to play. Treadwell is not a decent receiver. They don't have, I think that's one of the things we didn't talk much about, but it was very clear that Geno just didn't have many targets last week to throw to. This team needs another receiver. They haven't been able to find one. Marquise Goodwin is playing hurt. He didn't seem the same. Kenneth Walker ran for 100 yards, which is great to see. That was the probably most positive thing out of that week. And I hope Abe Lucas doesn't play this week. They had some injury concerns about him. I do not want him to get hurt and be gone in surgery or rehab I hope they sit him. So yeah, I think the Jets win this game. I think that they win. I don't think they're going to score that much, but let's say 23-13. Jets will win. And I want to thank Jen Maz for her contribution in Super Chat. Really appreciate that, Jen. And also thank you for, I think it's Gangrene David, a Jets fan, who also contributed in Super Chat. Appreciate that, dude. He said good luck in the game, and he's a big Jets fan. So, all right, folks. Now's the time. Click the like if you haven't already. Click subscribe and head on over to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Sign right up. Get into this channel. We will likely have a post-game show after the Jets game. It depends a little bit on hosting, but I think even if Nathan can't, I should be able to do it. Couldn't do it this past week, but will do my best to make sure we do it this week. I want to thank Evan Hill. It was great to see you, my friend. Good having you back. Good catching up.
Likewise.
And Simmons in Florida. Good to see you. Please enjoy whatever frosty beverage you're now going to go drink. And boys, we will talk more. All right. Take care. Thanks, everybody. And happy holidays. Go Hawks.